Hey guys, welcome back to the homestead. It is a beautiful day here. As you can see, everything is growing wonderfully out here in the garden. And we're going to go down and check out what Ryan is up to. We're about a week away from our Pennsylvania trip. So we need to do a few things to get the camper ready and quite a few things ready to get the truck ready. But today on our agenda, we're going to go see what he is doing on the camper brakes and tires. Good morning, Ryan. What are you up to?
So we've got new tires for the camper. You guys may or may not remember me saying, but the camper came with a Chinese tire, which in itself is not a terrible thing, but it's a trailer tire. It's, if I remember right, 5 years old. I'd have to find the date code. I'll show you that when we get to the shop to change it. Anyways, because of the miles we travel, we decided to go ahead and buy some new tires. So we have the Goodyear Endurance Made in America tires, and while we're at it, we're going to go ahead and check our wheel bearings, at least one or two. These have the little grease fit in here, and I didn't know. I've never really used these before, but if you're going to put a grease gun on that and pump grease into it, you have to be turning this the whole time you're doing it, because the injection port is in the very back of the spindle right by the seal. And if you just sit here and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze without turning it, it'll push it through the seal and into the brakes instead. So we're going to check one, maybe two, and see what we're doing. And then we're going to probably go find lug nuts. So any of you guys that do automotive work know that Ford, all I can say is, I can't even use the words on here because kids might be watching, but the tin cover gets boogered up and then the socket doesn't fit good. And when you're on the side of the road and you got a flat tire and you got to take each one of these and beat it back out of the socket because it's all boogered up, and then the metal comes off and you can hear it's hollow. Metal comes off and then the wrong size socket and you don't have the socket with you. So these are not going back on our camper. We are going to go find lug nuts, or we're going to order them off in the internet or something today. But I absolutely 100% despise whatever engineer designed lug nuts with tin covers on them. And you can see they're already cracked. The tin's already cracked. These haven't even been in the bad weather. You know, a lot of people say, well, it's because you drive it in snow and salt and sand. These have not been in that. These have just been out in the regular weather. My experience is the tin just boogers up from the socket and eventually you can't get the wrench on it. So anyways, that's enough of my rant. This is a Dexter axle. You know, while we're under here, we're looking at things like shackles to make sure we don't see any tears in shackles or any broken parts or any cracks in welds. These ones have these braces in here. Early Lippert frames didn't have these braces, and these welds up here were prone to cracking from going around corners and stuff. But you can see that now they put these braces down through here, which takes a lot of the strain out of it. Everything looks good there. We're just kind of going over it, and then we're going to pop our little doodad out of here. Some of these will have cotter pins. Some will have these doodads that just kind of squish on over the thing. And I'm going to go ahead and get me a clean spot because these bearings don't have that many miles on it. So if everything looks good, I am not going to be washing this all out and repacking it. The brakes on the camper work good, so we really don't think that we've injected a bunch of grease into the brakes. But you know, if you're going to have the tires right off. The other thing I'm going to point out too is that you'll notice I jack right between the U-bolts. You have to be careful when you're jacking on these things how much you jack one singular wheel. You know, this is setting on its outriggers, all the slides are out. But when you're doing one wheel at a time, it's not too bad. If I was going to do all four wheels and put it on jack stands or something, I would probably actually put the slides in and put it on just the front landing gear so I don't put too much strain on anything. And then this should just pop off. In theory. There we go. What I don't want to do is drop that bearing right there in the dirt. But you can see there's plenty of grease on that bearing. I'm going to take that off. And you'll see no grease in the brakes. So you'll see this is the seal I was worried about right here. Everything looks pretty good there. So we are probably going to go ahead and just shove this back together here in just a second. We will clean off the spindle just so that we don't push any grease into the brakes. And we'll blow the brakes out here. And then, you know, for those that don't know how the trailer brakes work, there's this magnet right here. And when you apply the brakes in the truck, this puts 12 volts to this magnet, which sticks to that and pulls. And as you see how as I pull, see how it pushes that brake pad back right there? And that applies the brakes. So that's how that works. It's a pretty simple system, but it works good. If you have brake issues, a lot of times you can buy this whole back plate, this whole assembly, cheaper than you can buy the parts and rebuild any of it. It comes off with 5 bolts. But here's that hole I was talking about right there. That's where the grease comes out. So it's actually behind the bearing. So it pumps out of there when you pump it in here. And it has to come all the way through the bearing and up through here. So if you're not spinning it, from what I understand, you risk the chance of pumping the grease into the brakes. So I think what we're probably going to do, because we're not really worried about this, because we know it's brand new basically, we're the only ones that put any miles on it. If I don't hear that like grindy dragging noise when I spin the wheel, I'm probably going to tear it apart. Otherwise, I'm probably going to consider it okay. So let's go ahead and put this one back together. Put our bearing back in there. And we will bring the grease gun down and give it a couple squirts a little later. Bearing fits on that shaft. There's a washer in here that has a flat spot on it. And that flat spot lines up with this flat spot on the spindle. Pretty straightforward. Nut can go either way. If you have a cotter pin, the nut probably can only go one way. Should be pretty explanatory. And then when you tighten this, especially on used bearings, what I like to do is I like to snug it up to make sure I don't have any play. Kind of keep tightening it. You see all of a sudden it starts going easy again. And what you should do is you should all of a sudden feel some drag on the wheel. Like right there. I feel some drag. Back it off just a little bit. And there's probably a more official way of doing this. The key is you don't want it like super tight. You really don't want a bunch of play in it either, of course, but you don't want any real drag on the bearings. And then you got to line everything back up. And this thing here, you'll see, I'm pretty sure I've got to get it so that I've got a flat showing for each one. So I either got to go a little tighter, a little looser, I think. This does make it a little bit way too loose. Pretty much it. Like I said, should spin pretty easy. Shouldn't have a bunch of side-to-side play in it. We'll check it again when we put our wheel on. We're not going to put our dust cover back on because we are going to pump some grease in that. But why don't we head on up to the shop and we'll show you what we're doing for tires and valve stems and all that good stuff, and go from there. All right, so we've got our new tire in here, and I want to show you the date code. I'm going to go ahead and unwrap the shipping label. These came from, I think, either Discount Tire, Tire Rack. So I order them online, they show up UPS. But this is what I was talking about a date code. So pretty much every tire ever made, as far as I know, has this 4-digit code stamped in it somewhere. And my understanding of this, and you guys can correct me if I'm completely wrong, but this is the week, so the 14th week of the year, and the numbers are the year. So this was made the 14th week of 2022. So these are basically brand new tires. This will probably only be on one side of the tire. I haven't been able to find it on this one yet. It may be on the back side. I know I found them before, but in any event, we know these are factory tires on the camper. The camper is a 2019, meaning these tires are probably at least a 2018, if not older. And yeah, so we're not going to worry about it on that one. Just trust us that these tires are going to be at least 4 years old, maybe 5. The other thing that you run into too is valve stems. So when you're doing tires that run at a fairly high pressure, see if I got a regular valve stem here. Yeah. So I'm going to step over here where I can set some stuff down. Sorry about that. You have when you have tires that run at a really high pressure, you want to use a valve stem that's made for that. It's got like a solid core or a bolt-on one. This particular one, goes through the rim. It's got a nut on the outside. These are your basic El Cheapo ones over here. And they're flexible. You see how they're flexible down in there? So they're not really meant to hold like high pressure. So when you're doing a tire that's going to run up to 80 psi or more, you want to get the proper valve stem. But that's pretty much it. We're going to go ahead, we're going to mount this tire, dismount that tire, mount this tire, and get the camper done, go from there. You guys probably don't care to watch us mount tires. We're probably going to use these metal ones because they're a little nicer. And yeah, we're going to go see if we can find some lug nuts and see if we can at least get the camper done. I'm not sure about Sir Dodgy Dodge. It is Wednesday morning. Yeah, Wednesday morning. I ordered the parts Monday. They said that it can take 1 to 2 days to process the order. I did order them 2-day UPS freight. So I'm going to call them today and bug them a little bit and find out if they've actually shipped, because we're getting close to the time where we've got probably about 9 days before this thing's got to be hooked to that, headed down the road. And yeah, no panic. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe.